Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you are new to me, it's the first time you're seeing my face. Hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening today. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in, the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have my second installment of my Birthstone recommendation series, and this is all about the Birthstone for the month of February. So if you have a February birthday, or you are interested in book recommendations based off of properties of gemstones, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking some books. All right, so this video is gonna be formatted just the same as my first installment, which was for January in the Birthstone of Garnet, and I will link it right up here in its playlist. So if you'd like to go check that one out, you're more than welcome to. However, February is the first month of the year that has two birthstones, and they are Amethyst and Jasper. Amethyst is the most popular of the two, so that is the one we're going to be focusing on for the majority of this video. However, my first round of recommendations is based on the fact that February has two birthstones. So I have a duology to recommend to you guys today, and that is by Beth Harbison, one of my favorite authors. I don't talk about her a lot on this channel because I haven't read her in a while, but I love her books. She's got the greatest titles for these books, and they are super fun. They're super happy. They've got some really good spicy scenes, not super spicy, but just enough spice to give you interested. And they've got really great characters and really great character arcs. And the first recommendation, the duology I have, is her Shoe Addicts Anonymous series. So we have Shoe Addicts Anonymous and Secrets of a Shoe Addict. I read both of these books years ago. Before I even started BookTube, I read these books. And started back in 2016, I read these books. And I was sold. I picked Shoe Addicts Anonymous for the sole reason that I am a shoe addict myself. I love shoes. I love heels. I love pointy toes. I love spikes. I love a good boot. I like a good sandal. I like shoes, okay? I do. The scarier looking, the crazier looking, the more obnoxious looking, the fucking better for me, okay? I love them. So I was really drawn to this book because of some of the brands they were talking about, some of the styles of shoes they were talking about. I was just eating this shit up, eating it up. Now, what I wasn't expecting to find in this book was some lovable characters. Our first installment follows 4 girls that all have their own issues going on, and they form a group called the Shoe Addicts Anonymous, where they meet every Tuesday and they trade shoes because they all happen to be wearing the exact same size. And they trade shoes, and they start to form this really unique sisterly kind of bond, which helps them deal with all of their issues that are going on in their lives. Now, we do have one character in here. She is a phone sex operator, and we get to meet her in the second installment, which is the carryover, and she forms her own little mini group of girls that are all suffering from really high debts because of issues that they have done to themselves by accident. They're all fully aware that they got themselves into this, and now they have to get themselves out. And they enlist her help in the phone sex operation, and it is a fucking riot. It's a riot. It's hilarious. I have such a good fucking time with this. It was great. I read these each in like 2 sittings because they read so quickly. So if you're looking for something fun, quick, happy-go-lucky with a little bit of steam, not super dark triggers, but just something fun and free, this is a duology for you. And if you are a shoe person, you need to check these out, because this is you. You will know the problems that some of these girls suffer if you are a shoe person. You can relate so well. Trust me, you will. My next recommendation comes off of the color of the amethyst, which is now we're focusing just on the amethyst for the rest of this video. And not the color, but the name of amethyst. And the name is derived from the Greek word amethystos. I am pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I tried, okay? And what it means is not drunk. This was one of the hardest attributes of the stone for me to find a recommendation for, because I have a lot of books where there is a lot of drinking, and a lot of the fun humor shenanigans happen while people are drunk. So I had to really dig. And then I remembered a book that I read last year, and it was this one, Laura Clary's Idiot. I gave this thing 5 stars because it was a riot. This thing's fucking hilarious. And I listened to it on audio, and she actually narrates her own audiobook, Laura Clary does. If you are not familiar with who Laura Clary is, she is actually a YouTube star herself. She does the Help Helen Smash, you know, the chick with the square really messed up filter that says really raunchy, bad pickup lines to her husband. And he's just like, the fuck is wrong with you? And he's British, and she makes fun of him because he's British and they're American, and they, you know, they're just fucking hilarious. If you've not seen her, go look her up. She's hilarious. But the thing about why I picked this for not being drunk is because this is her life story. And her earlier years, although this is hilarious and it is peppered with comedy, it is comedic about very dark topics. Laura Clary did drugs, she was an alcoholic, and a lot of her shenanigans were surrounded around those types of things. And when she became sober is actually when she developed her career, when she got her stardom with YouTube, because she was completely sober, because she was making fun of all of her darkness and all of that jazz. So I thought this was a perfect representation for not being drunk, because her shining moments came when she wasn't drunk. She's made fun of herself when she was drunk, and that was her shining moment. So this thing's hilarious. Definitely, if you pick this up, go check it up on audio. It is phenomenal. And the sequel, I don't know if it's called Idiot 2, but it's the follow-up to this one after she has her son. I haven't read it yet, but I plan on to. It's on my to-read list. I'm sure it's just as funny. No, just stay. Thanks. All right. My next recommendation is based off the color of the amethyst. As you can see here, the amethyst represents a lot of different colors. We have some pinks, some purples, some lilacs, because amethysts range in color from lilac to this deep purple. So they can be this kind of ombre look, or they can be more solid in each one of these tones. But the color from the amethyst comes from the iron and the radiation that's beneath the Earth's surface. And that's how you get this kind of amalgamation of these sunset-y, you know, looking purples and pinks and hues and things like that. The color is also very reminiscent of a lot of wines, and that is one reason why the amethyst is also associated with the Greek god Bacchus, who's the god of wine. So, knowing this, there is only one book out there that I could recommend for the color for amethyst, and that is this. Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This is the first installment to, or her first bind-up of her webtoon series, Lore Olympus. This features episodes 1 through 25, and there are multiple volumes. I think there are 3 volumes currently out right now, but the webtoon spans much, much further. And it is a Hades and Persephone retelling. But as you can see, you have kind of the amethyst look here, along with all the graphics in between the pages. There are some, I mean, yeah, there's not a better recommendation on my shelf for amethyst other than this book, because this is like an amethyst in and of itself. I mean, it's stunning. I picked this book up because I love the artwork in it, and I had seen some of the webtoons on Facebook, and I read a few, and I wanted to know what the storyline was, and it's very, very popular. I am not a big graphic novel reader. I don't really enjoy the format of it. So if you like graphic novels, this thing's really, really good. But if you're not a big graphic novel person, you are going to lose a lot of this story. The story in of itself is a basic Hades and Persephone retelling told in modern day times. Now, I only get a snippet of the story. This is just when Hades and Persephone pretty much meet in episodes 1 through 25. I have not continued on with the series yet, but I do plan on it. So I did not give this installment a very high score, but that was just because I was only going based off of this installment. However, I've heard many, many good things. The story gets really, really good as it goes down. So I do have high hopes for it, because I do love a Hades and Persephone retelling, and these are just stunning. I mean, the artwork in it is just absolutely phenomenal. I'll lose some of my recommendations having that one there, but that's okay. All right. The next recommendation is based off of the location of where you can find an amethyst. Amethyst's major source of production was actually in Russia up into the 19th century. Now you can find them in Africa, South America, and the United States, specifically Arizona and North Carolina. But since the primary area of production for them was Russia, my next recommendation comes right out of Russia with Paulina Simon's The Bronze Horseman. This is one of my favorite romances. I love this story. It is the start of a trilogy, and we follow Tatiana and Alexander during World War II. They meet and they start forming this relationship, and it's so beautifully displayed and described. You can feel everything in this book. It is so descriptive heavy. It insane. So good. Eventually, we do get some action when the war starts, and Alexander, who was in the Red Army, has to go off to war, and Tatiana becomes a nurse, and they get separated. Some words are thrown, and some serious shit happens. This thing will rip your heart out and make you look at it, and then shove it back in your chest. This thing made me bawl so hard. I have a full book review for this book, and I will link it up here in the corner for you guys so you can go check it out. It was when I first started my channel way back in the day, so I'm not very polished, and it was done at like 2 o'clock in the morning. When I finished the book, like immediately finished it, and I started talking about it because I loved it. I loved this book so much. It was so moving. I remember reading this in a January during a snowstorm. And even though it was snowing outside, my apartment was very warm, but it felt icy because of the way Simons described the Russian winter. I was so hungry after reading this book because of the blueberry pie that Tatiana was able to create out of the rations that they were given. It sounded so fucking good. I could taste it. The love between these two was just so tingly and so just spine-chillingly awesome. I was just shaking and shivering in all the good places. And the sex scenes were just... They were nice. Yeah. They were nice. They were nice. They were sweet. They were loving, they were passionate, they were aggressive, they were domineering. Alexander was a fucking god, and I wanted him. In the snow. Yep. And I'm not a snow girl. I like being cold, I don't like being outside in the snow. But yeah, this thing was just, 5 stars. I love this thing. I love it. Highly recommend this one. My next recommendation comes off of how amethysts are created. So, if you're not familiar with how amethysts are created, let me tell you. They are formed in a pyrogenic volcanic rocks referred to as basalts. And a basalt looks like this. Okay? Inside these ugly ass fucking rocks, minerals are formed, heated, cooled, melded, molded, and over time create this beautiful crystalline blue, pink, purple, just gooey all over beautiful fucking stone. So my recommendation for how these stones are created is a book that has a cover that I'm not really too fucking keen on, but damn if that story's not fucking awesome. And that is Serena Akeroyd's The Professor. When you look at this cover, it is not what it seems. When I saw this cover, I was not expecting the story that I got. I got a good one, and this cover by no means is a bad cover. It just doesn't say what's in the book. When I see this, I see heavy BDSM, I see domineering, I see, I see a very dark, triggery romance. What I don't see is a teacher-student relationship with a few minor dark elements, but a beautiful love story in the most twisted way. The Professor by Serena Akeroyd, I listened to on audio, and it was done by Wen Ross and Kay Kennicott. Awesome fucking combo. Just getting it out there right now. It is a bully romance, so we do have that kind of darkness there with a teacher-student romance. We do have some coerced consent, and we have a death of a child off page. We have verbal abuse, stalking, and domestic assault. But none of that is really described in this cover for me. But that's what is included in the story. So there is darkness in this cover, but this cover just does not represent the darknesses within this book. Now, we follow Nicholas and Phoebe. Phoebe is a student in Nicholas's creative writing class, and she works 2 jobs to make ends meet to try to support her piece of shit mom and basically raise her baby brother. And Nicholas is a divorced professor with a cruel streak that was enforced upon him by his ex-wife. He's also scarred because of his ex-wife, because she's psycho. Nicholas stalks Phoebe, has stalked her for a while, and catches her in a predicament and uses that to his advantage to elicit no longer just this voyeuristic relationship, but now a physical one. This book, oh my God. The sex in this book, 4.5. 4 chili peppers on the scale, on the chili pepper scale. 4. This thing was super, super hot. Not only do we have graphic language and adult content, we have a forced masturbation scene, which was fucking dope. Okay, I have never read a forced masturbation scene, but I was like, I need to take notes because that thing was hot as shit. Oh, fuck me, that was great. That was awesome on the teacher's desk in his office. Be still my beating heart. Oh my God. We also have a remote vibrator scene, which it's always a good time when one of those gets put into the story. I had a great time with this book. Sex scenes are fantastic. The pace of the story goes really, really well. And the dependency that is found between these two is just absolutely stunning because it is a dependency of actual need, but it's also a dependency of want. They both genuinely want each other, but they also both generally need each other. So it's a very, very well done balance. But this cover does not represent the beautiful story that's in this. This cover to me represents something that doesn't even appear in the story at all. Minus like the little college setting in the background. But yeah, so this is my recommendation for Amethyst because this cover is the basalt of the beautiful stone within it. The next couple of recommendations are based off of myths and folklore of the amethyst. And the first one is oftentimes amethysts are believed to allow the wearer to think very, very quickly on their feet. They elicit quick wit and clear-headedness. So my recommendation for this one is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is the first installment to the Brutal Birthright series. It's Italian-Irish mafia. We have enemies to lover in this, arranged marriage, dubious consent, and multiple acts of violence. We follow Aida and Callum. Aida is the youngest, yes, the youngest of the Italian mafia family, and she has 3 older brothers that decide to crash Callum's Irish mafia's party. And Aida accidentally turns his library on fire, sets it on fire. They find out. Callum retaliates by breaking Aida's brother's knee. The fathers decide to have a sit down, and instead of going to war or going to the mattresses, they say, fuck this shit. You two, you getting married. And Aida and Callum basically hate each other. And the banter between these two, oh my God. The wittiness of both of these characters, how quick they are with each other, how quick they are to respond, turn on each other, support each other. It's just, this book had me rolling in the darkest way possible. There is a scene in here where they're at the wedding and Aida finds out that Callum's allergic to something and puts it on her lips. She thinks he's just gonna break out into hives. No, he has a straight up allergic fucking reaction and has to go to the goddamn hospital. Almost dies. And she's just like, oh, I might have gone a little too far. Shit. So when she goes to apologize, he accepts and brings her into the pool and holds her down till she almost drowns. And he's like, well, payback's a bitch. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? This is my very first Sophie Lark book I've ever read. And I had such a good time with this. I bought majority of the rest of the series afterwards. And I cannot wait to continue with this. This thing was so, so good. The banter between them does not stop. It doesn't stop outside of sex scenes. It goes on during sex scenes. It's even better during sex scenes because they're just so fucking sarcastically mean to each other, but it's laced with this almost tone of respect and adoration that it's so minute in the beginning, but by the end, that's what you see and the sarcasm becomes funny. I'm telling you, in the darkest way possible, this thing will make you laugh your ass off. I had such a good fucking time with this book, and since it is, you know, a dark romance novel, we're gonna put it down here because I want to be able to see Callum's face. Yeah, we're gonna see him. If you are one of those people that does not feel comfortable reading books that have males on the cover because people automatically know you're not reading a trashy romance. This is not trashy. It is not a trashy romance novel. This is fucking gold. Reading a spicy romance novel, she has released discreet covers. So this is the discreet cover of Brutal Prince. So you do have both versions to choose from, although I like Callum, so we're gonna see him. You can just stare into my soul, it's fine. It's cool, I'm okay with that. The next thing about amethyst that they're known for is that in Christian lore, they are often used to reference the wounds of Christ because of their coloring. So I wanted to give you a recommendation based off of this, and I have one, and I had to dig for this one. This man is not the most popular for some of his political views, but he started this series, and I found it very interesting because although I do not believe in conspiracy theories, I enjoy reading them because I think they're hilariously funny. And this one I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed, and that is Killing Jesus by Bill O'Reilly. What Bill O'Reilly does in this book is he starts at the death of Christ and works his way backwards, telling the story backwards. So we get the actual scientific background of actually how the crucifixion worked, medically, how it would have actually worked to crucify somebody and kill them, along with all of the intrigue about it. So if you're looking for conspiracy theories because you find them really interesting and just want to know about some of the idiocies that are out there. Not all conspiracy theories are idiotic, but there are some that are really far-fetched for my taste, but I still want to learn about them because I think they're interesting, not that I actually believe them. This one is really fun. I know he's not the most popular for his politics, but his writing is done really well, and this is co-written with Martin Dugard, who does a lot of his research and everything like that. So I had a really good time with this story because being Catholic, it was very interesting for me to work my way back. I used to teach Sunday school. We call it PSR, Parish School Religion, for kids that don't go to Catholic school but are still Catholic so they can get their sacraments and everything. And I taught 6th grade. And when I would talk about the crucifixion, I would tell them exactly how a crucifixion worked. And so they knew medically and scientifically how it actually works. So I found that really intriguing, having that scientific knowledge put into a story format. So I really enjoyed that in and of itself. So I do recommend this one if you're looking for something kind of out of the box. Amethysts also oftentimes represent power and empowerment and inner strength. And when I was trying to think of a book that represented this, there was only one. And this is Finding Me, A Decade in Darkness, Life Reclaimed, a memoir of the Cleveland kidnappings. And it looks like this. This is the story of Michelle Knight. If you are not familiar, Michelle Knight was kidnapped and kept over a decade in a room chained to a wall by Ariel Castro. And he raped her, he beat her, he forced her to have 3 miscarriages, I believe, and this is how she survived. This is her story. I did a full book review on this as well, and I will link it up here in the corner for you guys. This is one of the most moving stories I've ever read. I have not read the other 2 autobiographies from the other 2 kidnapped girls. I would really like to one day. I just haven't. But this story this was the first story that ever made me feel happy for nothing exciting ever happening to me. I was so happy that this wasn't me. I was very humbled at what she went through because when she was in captivity, I was in high school. And I thought the worst thing in the world was not going to prom, not having a boy like me. This girl was fighting for her life every single day. So I was so humbled reading this book. This thing is scary. It is raw. It's not written the best. There is a lot of grammatical, technical errors in it, but it's her story. It's what happened to her. It's her experiences and her struggle to survive in deplorable conditions. This thing took me for a ride, and I have never stopped thinking about this book. Like, every once in a while, when shit gets hard, I will think of this book and think, you don't have a damn thing to fucking complain about. Shut the fuck up, put your big girl panties on, and get the fuck over it. And this book will remind me of that. this thing is moving, but it is scary as fuck. It is scary because it really happened. I can read a lot of dark hitting, heavy hitting triggers. This one is just like that. I read it fine, but it stuck with me because this really fucking happened. This girl suffered this. And she wasn't alone. There were 2 others. It scared me because of what could actually be out there. Under your nose, could it be happening? You know? So, if you're looking for something to enlighten you and to make you feel very, very happy for the life that you have and very thankful for it, pick this one up. It's a great one. And again, my review will be linked in the corner and down the box below. The last myth and folklore for Amethyst is that it is rumored that Saint Valentine, if you're not familiar with Saint Valentine, he's the patron saint of love in the Catholic faith, he wore an amethyst ring. It's rumored that he did. That was carved in the image of a cupid. And amethysts are also given as the traditional sixth wedding anniversary gift to couples. So to reflect this kind of long-standing Christian tradition with the amethyst and association with love, the recommendation I have for you is a Christian fiction story that I read in high school that has always stuck with me, and I reread recently, and I still gave it the same 5 stars I did when I was back in high school, and that is Where the Wild Rose Blooms by Lori Wick, the first installment to the Rocky Mountain Memory series. We follow Clayton and Jackie. This is the very first book I ever read with the name Jackie as the heroine. And they fall in love. But Jackie she's kind of a bitch. She is kind of a bitch. She's a little pretentious. She thinks she knows she's the prettiest. And therefore she doesn't have to try. And Clayton is enamored with her. He is. But then an event happens and the rug is pulled out from underneath Jackie. And she has to be sent away to live with her sister because she just can't function with her family anymore because of what has happened. And so she has to reacclimate herself. And her sister, trying to do right by her younger sister, hires her a tutor, and that is Clayton. So Clayton is now put back into her orbit, and Jackie has to really delve deep inside and work really hard to reclaim who she was, because she no longer has what she used to. And she doesn't think that she's as perfect as she was. And so a lot of things that she said in the beginning, she now has to eat her words. And there's so much growth in the character of Jackie. There's so much imagination that she starts to develop once the superficial is taken away. That the love story that blooms between Clayton and Jackie is something very, 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 very pure and very, 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 very real. In the beginning, it feels very fake, but towards the end, I cried at this book. I cried the second time I read this book, and it's not super steamy. It's not, but this book makes me feel so happy and so hopeful that true romance is out there, because it's a stunning representation of love is blind and it doesn't care what characteristics the person has or what they did have. It matters what they have now. And if that is what speaks to the other person, and in this case, it speaks across time. So I had such a good time with this book, and I highly recommend it. It is Christian fiction, so if you are not familiar with that genre, it is there's a lot of Christian emphasis on it, but it's not a specific religion set. It's just very open in the Christianity aspect. And so there's not a lot of taboo elements in it, but there is some dark stuff, and there is some triggers for defects or handicaps or disabilities, whichever way you want to describe it and how it kind of comes about. My next recommendation is based off of some uses of the garnet. And the first use is, it has been known that if you have amethyst, I'm not in January anymore. Some uses of the amethyst. If you place amethyst underneath your pillow or you rub them over your skin, it helps in producing soothing dreams and clarity and peacefulness. So to reflect that aspect of the amethyst, my recommendation for based off that is Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. This is the story of Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. Her and Jack have become married and she is the queen of Halloween Town, but she does not feel like she can stand and be the queen that she is, okay? And so she flees, and in their fleeing, she goes to the Hall of Doors, the Forest of Doors, where we have Nightmare Before Christmas, where Jack finds the Christmas tree door. Except she doesn't take any of those doors. She finds a hidden one with a moon on it. And she goes in there, and by going in there has started this chain reaction of events that she has to fix because of what happens. But we get Sally's backstory, and we find out that she's from Dreamtown. And we find out that she is not originally from Halloween Town, but she is a princess in her own right. And she has her own power, and she has her own story, and she has her own strength. And we see Sally go from this meek little rag doll into this like fierce queen that she is, and can handle anything, Dreamtown or Halloween Town included. And I just love this. I'm a huge fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, so anything Nightmare Before Christmas, I was eaten up, and I had such a good time with this one. It is YA, standalone, but it does give a lot of nods to maybe possible future installments, and we get more worlds, and we get Sally's backstory, and we get to see Jack and Sally again some more. Like, really, it's awesome. I'm like, I can't not talk about the love of Jack and Sally to me. I love them so much together. The next popular use for amethyst is the fact that it's a very popular piece of jewelry. So popular that Catherine the Great actually had a whole room of nothing but amethyst. That was one of her favorite types of jewelry to wear. Now, I don't own any amethyst jewelry, but there is something that I love to collect. And so since amethyst was her favorite piece to collect, I thought I'd show you a little bit about my favorite collection. I love the Penguin Clothbound classics. I absolutely adore these books. I have not read all of them. I do not own all of them, but every time I see one, I think they're absolutely stunning. I just am in awe of them. I love their aesthetic. I love the way they look on a shelf. I love everything about them, including the story within the pages. So here are just a small collection, a small sampling of my collection. And these are some of my favorites that I have read. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and Dracula by Bram Stoker, some of the darker ones. I do like the darker classics, tend to favor them some more. So I do recommend these 4 classics, and I recommend them in this edition because these things are absolutely fucking stunning. I have never seen these look bad on bookshelves. They just, when I think of a library, these are the kind of books that I think of. Sitting in on those shelves, like old school libraries, and the feel of them, the texture, I love them. So I highly recommend, if you've never picked up a Penguin Clothbound classic, to find your favorite classic and go buy that one. So you have a really beautiful representation of one of your favorite stories. Because books, although stories are great, sometimes there are people out there that just love the aesthetic of the way they look. And so I want these recommendations video to also reflect my collectors out there. So if you're looking for a really nice way of displaying some classics, this is a beautiful collection. And every single classic is cultivated to have graphics that are specific to that story, or an element of that story, or it's of that time frame, what have you. But they are all just stunning sitting on the shelf. I mean, they're beautiful. And majority of all of them, my husband bought me. So of course I'm going to love them. So, all right, they're kind of sort of there. And now for my last recommendation, my author spotlight. Every month I will feature an author that was born in that month and recommend one of their books that I have personally read, because this author reflects that birthstone. It was their birthstone. And this month is kind of special because it is Alice Walker's The Color Purple. Alice Walker was born February 9th, 1944. And she is an American novelist. The Color Purple, if you are not familiar with that story, we follow Celie and Nesty, two African-American women that were alive during the early 20th century in Georgia, and they were separated as young girls. And this story is told primarily through a series of letters. First, Celie's writing to God, and then between Celie and Nesty and the sisters. And this story sheds light on domestic assault, sexual abuse. It also shows compassion, bravery, resilience, and growth among people through times of turmoil and strife. This book it's been taught in colleges. I actually encountered it the very first time when I was in college. I was a GWS minor, Gender Women Studies minor in college, and one of my courses, our teacher required us to read this, and I fell in love with it. That is also when I first saw the Broadway musical that it was turned into, which is Tony Award winning, and I also watched the film that was created in 1985, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Danny Glover, Oprah Winfrey, and Whoopi Goldberg. That film was nominated for 11 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actress, and Best Supporting Actress, with 2 Best Supporting Actress features in that category for this film. This story has stood the test of time. It is a classic among it's a modern classic. It's taught in multiple different types of courses, whether it's literature, women's studies, African studies, history. It can cross genres of education, of background, of genres of books. This thing is fan-freaking-tastic. And I'm so happy that the author spotlight goes to an American novelist who is African-American, because February is also Black History Month. So I'm so glad I was able to represent that as well with this recommendation video, because I think that's just fucking phenomenal. And if you've not read The Color Purple, you should probably go read The fucking Color Purple. It's fantastic. And purple's in the Amethyst. So like, this is the perfect recommendation for this video. I was so excited when I learned that Alice Walker was born in February. I was like, score. Yay. But those are my recommendations for Amethyst. So if you have a February birthday and you plan on picking up any of these books, or you've read any of these, let me know. I would love to know. And if you don't have a February birthday, your month is coming, guys. Your month is coming. It'll be around here shortly. So I will see you guys all soon with March's Birthstone, which off the top of my head, I don't know what it is. So we'll find out. See you guys all later.